God. I was like, oh, it's not one thing, it's the other. Goodness. Okay, cool. All right. So today we're talking about spell casting, which is a super exciting topic to me. I think spell casting might be one of my gifts. It's definitely a happy place for me. It flows really naturally for me, so I get really excited in sharing my perspective on this topic. I do want to make a quick note for myself that hopefully I don't forget. Let me use it to stand out a little bit more to me. It's so interesting, like how different this has to go when we're doing it virtually and not in person.
Right.
Like little tweaks. I'm like, oh, I can't do that way, can I? Because you're not in my house right now. Okay, note made. Okay, that's right in my face. Lovely. Okay, so typically in this class, I talk about spellcasting and then I give you a whole bunch of handouts about like different spell properties for a whole bunch of gems and a whole bunch of herbs and spices. And then I'd have you pick out a spell bottle in my home that you can keep, and you would build your own spell, and I would be available to you for if you needed help in writing your spell and building your own spell bottle. Is kind of how the class will go. But since there's distance here, we'll talk about spell casting. You'll have an opportunity to pick my brain in any capacity that you want. And then as part of your homework assignment, I'll have you write a spell and attempt building a spell bottle. If you don't have time to build a spell bottle, just try to get it done at some point in the duration of our course so that you have an opportunity to ask questions about it if that comes up for you.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, let's see. Okay, so I took a quote from Harry Potter that I found very poignant when it comes to spellcasting, and it's something that Dumbledore says at like the very end of the thing. He says, "Words, in my not so humble opinion, are a most inexhaustible form of magic," which I think speaks really true to spellcasting. I think that spells are a very magical medium that we have at our disposal, where we manifest our intention through action. That's what spellcasting is to me. It's a way of powerfully manifesting your intentions through action, not just through thoughts, but actually through action. So because I believe this, spells, they can be spoken, they can be built with your hands, they can be drawn, they can be brewed or cooked, they can be crafted, they can be danced, they can be drummed or sung or buried or poured or lit on fire. Like any verb you can think of is how you can even sex, like even consummating a spell, like any verb you can think of, you can put your spell into work, put it into work. So there's no wrong way, really. There's ethical ways and non-ethical ways, which we will talk about. But yeah, so that's why we get things like hedge witches and kitchen witches and ancestral witches. It's because there's so many ways that we can put our spellcraft into work that really resonates for the individual witch. Now, the difference between a beginning spell weaver and a professional spell weaver, in my opinion, is spells go beyond mere thinking something into being. Which there are rules about doing even that successfully, but spells are proactive, and the more intention you put into your spell, the more powerful it will be. So the more effort invested into your spell, the more potency your spell is going to generate. Now obviously there's an exception to that. If the level of work you're putting into the spell crosses that line where you're like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? And it's no longer fun for you, that totally defeats the purpose. But
Right.
if you're putting lots of intention into the work and you're adding lots of different mediums, lots of different layers, you're increasing the potency of it because it's getting that much more juice and imbued with your own enthusiasm and your own like special gifts and power and energy. So it does make the spell more rich and potent. So my spell weaving equation for success is, it's a little bit of a long thing, but it's intention plus action plus layers of effort. In other words, mix your mediums, meaning use gems, use spells, use numerology, use the directions, use color. Like there's so many different things you can draw from when building up a spell. So plus mixing your mediums, plus continual interaction, meaning you want to place your spell in a relevant location so that it can have continued acknowledgement beyond the day that you cast it, that you can revisit it and say like, oh yes, that's that spell I cast, I'm still working on it, or whatever. So relevant placement and acknowledgement plus gratitude for it already coming true equals powerful spell weaving. So there are any questions about any of that I just said?
No. You can get it.
Okay. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay. So some spell weaving warnings, things to be aware of. The most important thing to remember about spell weaving is a few things. One is that like increases like. So what you focus on grows. And what a lot of baby witches, I'm not calling you a baby witch, but a lot of baby witches, what they don't understand is that the universe does not understand words like no or don't want or don't need or no longer, anything in a negative connotation. All the like spirit and the universe receive is the positive. So if you're casting out there, I no longer want to be in bad relationships, what the universe hears in is I want to be in bad relationships. So that's what you're casting out there, is more energy towards being in a shitty relationship. And that's what you get.
Right.
So also when you're focusing on, another example would be, I wish I didn't struggle with money so much, or I no longer want to struggle with money so much. Obviously the universe is going to hear I want to struggle with money so much. But also the more you focus on your scarcity and the lack of something, you're further perpetuating more and more lack, because that's what you're focusing on, is the scarcity aspect of it, not the abundance, the other side of it, which you actually want. So that plays a huge role in the spell that you cast. Like when Amanda and I did that cooperative spell for you, I touched base with her like on the phone before we did it, and I was like, okay, I need you to remind you the importance of this. Like, do not use any negative words whatsoever in this. I was like, we're doing this for another human being. We got to keep it all positive, all in the positive. Like, don't use any of these words. You know the deal, but I'm reminding you, like, we're doing cooperative magic, cooperative magic is much more powerful than the magic one can generate on their own, especially if you're doing things succinctly or using shared knowledge or shared tools, things like that. It really can amplify something. So it's like okay. Like, I need you to pick up the phone because we need to talk about this real quick before we get started. So, yeah, so that's important. Like increases like. So that's something to remember. The other thing is recognizing the power of three, and that's something you're probably familiar with in all the reading that you've done. But there's this idea that whatever you cast out, you're going to get back times three. So if you're casting something beautiful and positive out there, you're going to get that much beauty and positivity back. If you're casting something ugly and negative out there, you're going to get that same type of energy 3 times over back in your direction, which would suck. Okay. So yeah, the power of 3. So that's something to keep in mind. And then as far as ethics go, we never cast spells on another person without their consent. So even if it's a nice spell, you should get consent. Say like, I would really love to send you positive energy. If the word spell trips people out, you can say energy, or I want to send you healing prayers or whatever. It's a good idea to get consent. And then I guess this isn't actually ethics. It's more about responsibility and safety. Let's say you're wanting to, I interchange words between the craft and magic. Other traditions, they separate the two, like magic is its own thing and then spellcraft or witchcraft is its own thing. I think magic isn't everything, and so I use that word really loosely. So right. It's okay if you separate them. Just know that when I say it, you can ask me to be more specific if you want me to. Okay. But I use the term interchangeably. So in terms of safety, let's say these are just things to think about when, depending on whatever it is you want to do. For example, it occurred to me that say I had a goal that I think would be really effing awesome to be able to light a candle without using magic, like without, just to be able to do a gesture or to snap or something and to be able to light a candle. That would be super cool. And witches do commit effort and hours and lots of practice to try to cultivate something of those lines. The things to consider when doing something like that is that you have to take into consideration that if you're using magic to create something, it might take magic to extinguish it versus something else. So it's possible that if you were to successfully light a fire with, say, your mind, maybe it would take only your mind to extinguish the flame, and that something natural wouldn't work. So you have to consider things like that, which means you actually have to learn how to do that spell in reverse. You actually need to learn how to put a fire out with your mind first, and then try lighting. Because when you light it, there's a great chance that you're not going to set the candle alight. You'll set something else on fire first. Trial and error, right? Right. So and if water isn't going to extinguish it, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So you have to think about spell casting with that level of concern. If you're going to be responsible about it. Now, not everything we want to do is that fantastical. Like sometimes we just want to attract abundance, or we just want to work further with a deity's beautiful energy and invite them into our lives more, whatever. Protection for ourselves or for our home, things like that. But if you start branching out and wanting to get more experimental or more to challenge your spellcrafting abilities more, you want to think about it with that level of concern. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
And if you have questions about, that's one of the great things about Coven, is that Coven is a great place to say, I have this idea about a spell I'd really like to do, and I want to get feedback on maybe I'm not considering a level of a trap that might exist in me creating this spell. Can you guys think of anything that might come up that would bite me in the ass? Coven's a great place to talk about that and get feedback.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely utilize.
Yeah, a question.
Yeah.
So would it be important to have like a good visual of your end goal before you start working on your spell to try to maybe like target it better? You know, like instead of just saying, I want to, oh shoot, I don't even know. I want to be happier in my work life. Maybe picture what that might look like and then work backwards from that kind of.
Having a really strong, that's a wonderful question. Having a really strong vision of what you're trying to achieve before you set out is, that is optimal. It's a wonderful way to approach soul work for sure, because it allows you to get that much more specific in what you're creating. But spell casting is a lot like artistry. It is an art, really. It's its own art form. So just as an artist sometimes has a plan, as soon as they start doing the work, something more wonderful starts to bloom out of the work that they're doing. So you want to leave room to even allowing yourself to be surprised. So as you start going, the spell might take on a different form, and you might realize and discover through your efforts and action that what you thought you wanted doesn't come close to really represent what you actually want. And it's through doing this work that your real goal is starting to emerge. And that redirects how you continue in building this spell. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So it's like just as important to see where the spell takes you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not critical, like, remember the cycle of mastery, like be where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. So in that context, we're not shooting for perfection. We're just perfection off, like having all these pieces in place before we even begin is like a death sentence to everything you'll ever do. Like that's not recommended. So don't let a lack of a perfect vision keep you from beginning. Sometimes the beginning is what will allow that vision to really draw itself out and make itself known to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say like the only thing that's really critical about having a really strong vision in advance is when you're doing something that could be dangerous. Like,
okay.
Then you want to know up front so that you can cover your ass in every aspect, like account for every possibility.
Right.
That's where it's critical that you have a really good idea of what you're doing before you start. Fire extinguisher on hand. You know, but otherwise, allow yourself to learn something. Allow yourself to become your own teacher. Okay. Cool. That's a really good question. I love that question. All right. So weaving a spell. There's several things. So it's hilarious. The first thing I said was make sure, oh, well, I guess that's not quite it. Like, did I just contradict myself? You do want to make sure that your intention for your spell is eventually somewhere clearly stated within the spell. It doesn't have to be right at the top of your spell, but somewhere in the spell you're casting, whether it's, even if it's not written, if it's, say you're cooking, you're spelling the herbs that you're sprinkling in, or how many times you stir, using numerology in there, that kind of thing. Somewhere in the cooking of your spell, you want to make sure that at some point you are making that statement in your mind or whatever, that this is why I'm putting all these things together and this is what I want. So your intention has to be clearly stated at some point within the spell. You want to make sure that we said that your intention is constructed using only positive words. That's important. Now, whether or not your spell rhymes is entirely up to you. Some witches believe all spells must rhyme, and actually, I've never heard witches say anything about that. They say your spells need to rhyme. That's just what they say. Here's what I think about that. I don't think there's any wrong way to do spell casting, so I disagree. However, I will say that because like ever since I made a spell that did rhyme, the freedom fighter in me was all against it, and so I didn't intentionally rhyme my spells because of it. I was like, no, people don't have to do what you say. Stuff like that. But then I made a spell that did rhyme, and I have to tell you, because rhyming takes more effort to create, the spell actually had way more gravitas, and it affected me on a much deeper cellular level than the spells that I had written that didn't rhyme. So you decide for yourself, but that's what I have to say about it. So now I only rhyme my spells. It's true. Yeah. So FYI about that. You can borrow imagery from other people's work as long as you're not publishing the spells. You can borrow imagery if their imagery or words or even pictures really resonates for you in terms of what you're trying to produce or create. There's no reason why you can't borrow work. There's a goddess charm that I sell on my website, and what I'm selling is the charm. It's the piece of jewelry. That's what people are buying. But for free, I give them a little spell to go with it, plus a little altar photo of the goddess that it's associated with. And the little spell that's in it, there's two pieces of imagery that I found in doing research on this particular deity that were so beautiful that I borrowed them. And I credit the person at the end of it or whatever. But yeah, so just so you know, like you can borrow whatever so long as you're not publishing. And then, okay, so spells can be woven in many different ways. Like I said, in the equation is to mix your mediums. So I am going to screen share with you some examples of that. So let me just highlight this. We're going to come back to this. There is a little gnat flying around in my face. You're like, what is she doing? There's like this little bug. Like, go away from me. Weaving deities into your spells is another way to enhance and heighten the energy of your spells. Obviously, when you're doing spell weaving, you're looking for items that contain the same properties and presence of the thing you're trying to create. We don't just add random ingredients because they're available and we like them. It's because the property it holds is relevant to the spell you're creating. So if a deity has a certain relevance, but she has way more of it than you do, or she has something you don't have at all, and she has it in spades, incorporating that deity into the spell is just a way to add another huge element and component of magic within your spell work. So adding deities to your spell work is a great way to boost your potency. And that includes actually inviting your highest self into your spell. Do on that. That's another good thing to do. I think it's always a great idea to begin your spell weaving excursion and experiences with protection and clearing. You're setting the space for a heightened energetic experience where all your feelers and your senses are being put out there and being put into action. Your mind's being activated in a more expansive way to try to think of what you can draw in and collect that will help make this certain goal more potent. And that's attractive. So protection and clearing when you begin is a great thing to do. And also it's a great way to state to begin that conversation of intention of what you're creating by stating it to the beautiful many, the powers that be, whoever you got, and to your highest self. Like, this is what we're doing today. Join me, protect me. Let's clear anything else that's not participating with us out. Okay, so do you watch a lot of witchcraft shows? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't they fun? Our witch TV, the best. So a lot of shows all the spells they cast are in Latin. And I know when I started on my witchcraft path, I was like, shit, maybe should I learn Latin? Like, or should I study Latin? Get Google Latin translator or something to make my spells sound as cool as they do on TV. Yeah, so spells can be written and or spoken in other languages if it makes the saying of the spell resonate for you more. If that heightens the experience and the feeling of the spell, then great, do it. It's all about your connection with what you're creating and what you're crafting. Yeah. And then, do you speak other languages?
Not really.
Okay.
Passable Spanish, but that's about it.
Okay, so for people who do speak multiple languages, what I tell them is that sometimes, depending on the spell that you use, one of your languages might have more significance and resonate more to use for that particular spell. And if that's the case, that's the language you use for that spell. But that it won't be across the board for everything you do. To be,
right.
Just be flexible about that. In witchcraft traditions, it is considered unethical to sell spells. That's why I'm not selling the spell. That came way later. Like, I was crafting the jewelry and I was like, oh, free gift,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's considered unethical to sell spells. Do you have a grimoire already or your own book of shadows?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. That's so cool. Mine just shipped, so it's gonna take like another month and a half before it arrives. I'm still so excited.
Yeah, mine's not anything fancy. It's literally in a binder with the protection sigil on it, and that's
cool though. That's all right. That's all right. That's all good. A lot of people, yeah, I mean, a lot of people use those Mead like notebooks,
mm-hmm.
and they just have like a bookcase of them. They just fill one up and they move on to the next one. Yeah, just for me, like, I wanted something that I'm hoping will take me like the rest of my life to fill it. I wanted like this monster.
Right.
It's just the vision that I had. Who knows, with how much arts and crafts that I do, the whole book might be collages, and then I'll have to buy something else because there's no more room to write in it. Like, yeah, it could totally, my plans shift. But in your book of shadows, you do want to make sure that you're recording your successes and your failures. So we learn a lot from our mistakes. So if you craft a spell and it just fizzles out, nothing really comes of it, you were not able to manifest what you were setting out to do, it didn't come true or whatever, make notes of it. Write down what steps you did take, what you did incorporate, all the aspects that went into building it. So you might recognize some missing links, or like, this didn't work for me, I'm going to tweak this thing this time and see if that makes a difference. So just make sure that you're recording not the bad as well. It's not bad, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then you do want to consider in your spell work, if you want to consider if your spells are going to have a certain type of personal signature on them. It's not required by any means. Again, there's no wrong way. But yeah, you might want to sign all of your spells in a certain way that's very unique onto you. So that's something to consider. Like, what would Katie signing off on a spell look like? What would that be? I know next week, part of your assignment will be to create your own personal sigil. So if you haven't done that already, don't do that this week. We'll do it next week.
Okay.
Don't focus on that yet, but that's coming. But something to think about. It might not be a sigil. It might be something else entirely. It's not a sigil. And if it is, what would that look like for Katie? Something to think about. And then another great thing to do for spell weaving is to romanticize the process. And what I mean by that is make a day of it. Like, set aside some time where you're like, this whole day is about my special excursion to create this one awesome thing. When you eat your food, you're eating your meals that day with this intention of like the excitement and the magic of what you're about to produce. You're having that same intention when you're bathing or getting ready or dressed or whatever, feeding your animals, that there's this intention that's being put into everything you're doing in a way that makes you excited and gleeful and happy, paving the way and preparing the space for what you're about to do. Yeah, that also is a way of boosting the juice in your spouse by just kind of incorporating your whole day into it. Okay. Oh yeah. So then you do want to consider in advance like what type of vessel is going to hold your spell, whether it'll be a bottle, whether it's a dish, like a stew pot, like pan or whatever, whether it's the wind, the breeze is carrying your spell away, who knows, whatever you're doing, I don't know, whether it's the earth, you're burying something. You want to consider in advance what your vessel is going to be in case it's a vessel you need to consecrate or like all that kinds of things. Like just think in advance about what's holding on to that energy. And then anytime your spells don't produce what you're looking for, did your spell produce the results you wanted? If the answer is no, then where I would go to first is consider investing more intentionality in the construction of your spell, and or consider maybe you didn't use a lot of mixed mediums, maybe you only use like one or two, maybe add a third one in to give it some extra layers in there. I'm trying to see like when's the best time to segue into. Okay, got it. Okay, so any questions about any of that so far?
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right, so spell bottle. This is typically a spell bottle class. So what I have to say about spell bottles is there's lots of different types. So some spell bottles are, you know, vials. They have screw tops, they have cork tops. Some of them you cannot see through, like amber glass or something, and others of them, then there's ones that are meant to be worn, dangle around your neck. And then you've got big fuckers that you do different things with. Pardon my French. So spell bottles like this are typically spells that people cast regarding their home or their family, are usually put in much bigger bottles, and more often than not, they are usually buried at the threshold of a home to protect the home. Or if you're a homeowner and you get there in time, a lot of people will build a spell bottle around, you know, protection, having a loving home, only light and love entering their home, things like that. And they will actually seal the bottle inside the foundation of the house, like inside the drywall or things like that. Or have the floor, concrete floor, or whatever, poured on top of it, so it's buried somewhere within the house, which I think is really cool. Yeah. Someday when I'm a homeowner, I will make a point, be like, you can't pour the foundation yet. I have something I need to do. Yeah, wait. I have a glass bottle filled with really neat witchy things, and I need you to bury first. That's everything. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, so spell bottles, you're picking your vessel, your container, you're picking that, like, as with the equation is placement and acknowledgement. So like this is something you know is hidden in the wall, and that, you know, when you pass it, that's where it is. and you know it's always there and it's always gonna whatever. Something like this. So this is the actual Sabrina charm that's offered on my website. And this is a worry charm. So it's to dispel any worry or anxiety a person's having, to release them of fears and anxiety. So this stays in a drawer, but when I need it, I pull it out and I say the spell and then I put it on. And we're gonna dissect the spell that went into making this as part of one of the things we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about it, but that's one way of placement. It's worn, that kind of thing. This does have a deity incorporated into it, so that's another thing with spell bottles. Give it a little extra juice. This has the goddess Sabrina. She's a Welsh river goddess. You want to think about what materials obviously are going to benefit the spell, and will they fit in the vessel you picked? Or if you're cooking, is everything you want to use edible? Hope so, kind of thing. And then ways to build and seal your bottle. So things like this for your home, you wouldn't really need to seal it if it has a top. But things like, so this little guy doesn't have a screw on the top. This isn't something you wear. If you wanted to seal this, are really, like some people use glue to put inside the cork. A really beautiful effect is to put hot wax as the last thing you put in the bottle and then put the cork on it, and it kind of creates this really cool pattern. If you're going to wear a spell bottle, like sometimes I'll do like a monthly ritual or spell for something I want to like draw into my life, and I'll build the spell bottle and then I'll wear it until it comes true. Is like how I would work with something like this. Obviously this has a different purpose, but when there is a little hoop ring at the top of a cork, those things come out so easily, they wiggle themselves free, that if you want to wear a spell charm, you have to put the wax on the outside. And candle wax is not gonna cut it. Your body heat will melt it straight off. I had like this totally greasy chest and I smelled like flowers and I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
Like, live and learn from my mistakes. It doesn't work. So, the wax that I used for the jewelry is an actual a wax sealing kit for like those old fashioned hand stamped letters. That wax is solid. Nothing's gonna happen with that. And plus wax filling kits are really fun. They're super fun. As soon as I got mine, I was so in love with it. I sent out a whole bunch of handwritten letters just so I could make these big stamps, because I got a whole bunch of cool stamps too. Like, it's just a fun thing. But that kind of wax is perfect for these. And Amazon sells that type of wax really, really cheap. You can get lots of really fun colors. Okay, where to place your bottle. Again, things that you don't wear, like little things like this. Maybe this is something you want to put on your altar, or if it's something to bring in peaceful sleep, you can place it right by your bed. So you see it before bed. You get the idea. And then what to do with your spell bottle when it comes true. So with everything that you cast and you craft, it's important that you return it to the earth when it serves its purpose. So that also plays a part in what you put into your spell work. You want to be using things that are not harmful to the earth, because eventually you want to surrender it back to the earth. So little guys like this, I bury outside. I'll go dig a hole and bury it in the ground and let the elements have it. Other things you can do is you could empty it and you can flush it in the toilet or whatever. If you do put it in water, just make sure that it's not harmful to rivers and streams or the ocean. Like, you want to make sure that everything that goes in here is safe for all the little beasties and the creatures who are going to be looking after it when you're done with it. So just be mindful of that. Lovely. Okay. The module that's going to be released to you tomorrow, you're going to get a list of a lot of magical properties to gems and to herbs and spices and flowers. So you'll have some tools at your immediate disposal. It's not a complete list. It's just references to things I actually have in my house. But other things to consider besides what herbs or flowers or spices or gems, you can work with ash. That ash is a way of bringing the fire element, and it's also a wind element component too, and earth. So you've got a mixture of things going on there. But ash is great for protection. It's good for warding, purifying, releasing. It's also greatly associated with the goddess Pele. She's a volcanic goddess. So if you want to be doing any work with her, adding ash into a spell with her is great. Bark, twigs, and branches is a great way of incorporating the earth element into your work. It's great for growth, prosperity, strength, spells regarding balance, support change. It also strengthens your ability to listen and observe. And it's a good practice for balancing giving and receiving, working with branches and twigs. Bones are a great thing to incorporate into spells, another earth element thing that honors change, the birth and death and rebirth cycle. Ancestry, fertility, stability, strong structures, foundations. Okay, so blood is actually the most potent ingredient you could possibly use, but because it's such a powerful enhancer, it's one of those things you have to be really fucking careful with. Back to the safety talk. So just be really mindful that whatever you're putting out there, that like some people use blood magic, like a drop of their blood the drop of the blood is their signature seal. There isn't anything more specific to you than that, like hands down. So a lot of people will seal their work with a sacrifice. You know, in olden times, we would slaughter a huge animal, and splash its blood all over something. But instead, they're doing just one drop. It's their way of giving a sacrifice and offering, which I think is great. Yeah, but just make sure you fully understand the power of 3 and that you're being really safe about the words you're using, the intention you're setting, and all of that. Obviously, earth and soil for earth type of spells, nurturing work, helping something grow, feeding your soul, strengthening bonds between you and the mother or a metaphorical mother. Essential oils are a great thing to incorporate in spells. The Hertz frequency. Did we talk about Hertz frequency at all?
I think so.
Okay. So everything in existence has frequency. Even the chair you're sitting in has frequency. So even inanimate objects, everything has frequency. And it resonates in hertz, or that's usually how it's measured. So depending on the number of hertz that we're exposed to, changes, like our human body fluctuates at a certain level of hertz, and depending on the hertz we're exposed to throughout the day, our hertz frequency will fluctuate throughout the day. Now, if our hertz frequency drops below a certain point, I think it's below 52 hertz or something like that, that's when our body starts experiencing unfavorable symptoms and we get sick and illness sets in. So when you fell sick, your hertz frequency was below that number for sure. That's just a given. Now, essential oils, on the other hand, their frequency is within like the 300 spectrum, and humans operate around a 70-something degree hertz frequency. So like the hertz frequency of essential oils is like through the roof. So super powerful, potent medicine. And if you're exposed to really high frequencies, it raises your frequency. And that's a good thing. That's very beneficial for the human body. So essential oils are super potent, wonderful things to use in spellcraft. Feathers are a great thing to use for the air element. Just keep in mind, it's kind of illegal. Be wary of that. Yeah. Obviously, flowers are great. Leaves, river stones, roots. Roots are a great thing to use as our shells. And I'm sure there's other things that you can think of that fall within that spectrum. Okay, so I think what we're going to do now, we're gonna workshop I'm gonna show you some spells. And let me share my screen here. Okay, so this here is 2 different spells. Okay, so let's just look at this one. Okay, so this whole thing on the screen is a single spell. So from with a twist all the way down to you start, that's the spell, and then these things in the boxes are things I want to point out. So for this particular spell, this is a spell I use to make a, can you still see me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so this spell I use to make what's called a witch's ladder. So a witch's ladder, you're shaking your head, so you already know what a witch's ladder is, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so for this, everything that's highlighted in yellow on this spell is what I did when I started this spell. The first thing I did was I wrote my spell. I didn't touch the ladder, make the materials of the ladder yet. I first constructed my spell. And how I did that was I knew what I wanted to cast, which is highlighted in bold on this spell. My intention stated, which is I cast a Path of Harmony. So I was reading an author that I learned about witch ladders from. Her name is Lisa Lister. She wrote a book called Witch, and I absolutely love that book. It's really a great book. But one of the beautiful things she was saying about witch ladders is that she still has the very first witch ladder she ever created, and she's been a practicing witch for like 30 plus years or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. So, when I set out to make my first one, I set out with the intention of what kind of a witch ladder would I want to keep around, like all the time. You know, so I wouldn't want to make it about something that was super specific. So I went for something a little more vague. It's like, what's something I will always want to have in my life? And to me, that was like, I want to have a harmonious life. I want my life to exist in harmony. So I decided to make a spell around that so that I could enjoy this for a very long time. So again, placement. This is something that I place the entrance into my kitchen. So it goes from my living room into my kitchen. So I pass by it every single day, multiple times a day. Now, I knew that harmony was my intention. So what I did was I made a list of ribbon colors, you know, all the different colors of ribbons. And with witchcraft, it's easy to find the meaning and significance of each of the colors. So I wrote out, or I printed or typed or whatever, cut and paste. You know, I had a list of the colors with all their meanings. And then I went through all the meanings of the colors and I highlighted which words resonated for me. Like, yes, that's a great word. Like, yes, that has to do with harmony. I resonate with the word as well. I highlighted those words. And it's those highlighted words, first of all, if I highlighted a word that was associated with a color, that color of ribbon was going to go into this. So that's how I picked my colors, obviously. But then the highlighted words, I made sure that I used that word in the actual spell itself. So that's what the yellow highlighted words are in this spell. They're actually words that are associated with the colors that I picked. Now, I picked using the power of 3 or using numerology. The number 3 is represented in this a lot. It's hard to see on this, but there are 3 different there's 3 different individual braids of 3. So I have 3 braids. They all have 3 strands in them each. They're all each braid has 3 different colors. There's no repetitive color. And then I braided those 3 braids together as well. You got 3 and 3 and then another 3. I also used knotting magic. Are you familiar with knot spells? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay. Yep. So there is also 9 knots throughout the whole thing, evenly spaced. So I use knot magic as well. Let's see. Everything else that's written in the spell is in reference to what harmony looks and feels like to me. And then to bring additional intentionality into casting this, what I did was I wrote my spell, and then once when I had it written, I said it out loud over and over and over again the entire time it took me to create this thing. And this is 9 feet long.
Wow.
Yeah. It was 9 feet long. Maybe, no, I must have cut it. At some point I was like, oh my God, enough. Yeah, it was getting like too, because the hook for this is like up towards my ceiling because it's so long. But it took me 6 hours to make this.
Wow.
So I just repeated this spell over and over, and every time I spoke it, I was weaving together these significant, each thread had a significance to it. And after I had braided the whole thing and knotted the whole thing, I then sewed gems into, you can't see, but I alternate between garnet and peach moonstone. Like every few spacing, there's like a gemstone sewn into the braid all the way down it. And the end tassel, you've got like long strands of garnet and peach moonstone. This is a huge chunk of rose quartz. And then this, in a sense, is a signature. This is the only time I've ever used this, but it just so happens to be a penny that's the year that I was born. So it's 1981 penny. So that kind of got fastened onto the end. But for me, when I walk past this, I grab it and I know this spell like it's so memorized by now after how many times I said it out loud. So I just give it a little say, and it lights me up. I feel really good. So this thing is something I see every day, and it makes me really happy to see it. I like seeing it. So that's one way of bringing a whole bunch of different things into something. Now this spell below, this is the Sabrina charm spell. This is that worry charm one. This one, it's on my website. So go ahead and take a look at this and see if you can identify how many times I give gratitude to Sabrina for taking my cares away. Like how many times does that come up? So there's multiple times throughout the spell that I'm reinforcing this intention. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm working on. And at the same time I'm doing that, I'm also acknowledging what this goddess does best. She is somebody that you pray to, and she is there to take your worry away. She's there to cleanse and heal those who seek her out. So by giving thanks to her and further stating my intention, I'm also acknowledging what her gifts are. So it's a way of honoring this goddess as well. So and then in addition to that, I have a little altar image of her that is on one of my altars, kind of near the box where I keep it. So when I pull it out to say this spell before I put it on, I say this spell to her. And then I put this necklace on. Honestly, this spell is really strong for me. Like literally my cells like feel like a fireworks display when I say this spell. For me, this spell is like super solid with my being. It works really fast. It works instantly. If I feel any type of anxiety or worry or stress, it works instantly for me. And I'm like, okay, great. And then I just move on. I keep it on, but it works really, really well for me. And then of course, like everything that's in here is significant to her. Because I was working with goddess energy, I did a lot of research about the goddess Sabrina. I looked up what she's known for. Does she have certain animals associated with her? Are there specific colors? Does she have a flower that's associated with her or a fragrance? Things like that. A lot of research will tell you a lot of the elements that you can use to, tie it all together. So everything that's in here is significant to her. And some things can be modified. For example, her face, like the flower that's associated with her is a pink lily. And I don't know about you, but I was having a hard time finding a pink lily or having the ability to dry a lily in time to like pinch off a small piece to stick it in this tiny bottle. So instead, what I did, lilies are in the shape of a star. And a lot of the reason why lilies are associated with magic is because they resemble the pentagram, because they have that star shape to them. So instead, what I did was I used pink rose petals for the pink, because I have pink rose petals. Again, be as you are, use what you have, do what you can. It's an intention counts. And then I took a star anise seed, because a star anise is in a perfect shape of a star. Obviously, the whole thing can't fit in here, so I just removed the seed from it to represent the star shape, and that went in the bottle. So it's intention. It's how you put yourself forth and bring things into the picture. Like powers that be and those above, like they know what you're getting at.
Right.
So it's all good.
That's really creative. That's cool.
Yeah. So just know that thinking outside of the box is actually a huge service to your spells. They love that shit. It means that you're going out of your way to try to find a way to make it work. So it's great to get innovative and do something that's kind of unexpected and other will definitely serve your purposes. All right, let's see here. Let's do this. And I actually need to, let's see. There we go. Okay. Need to check one more thing. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Talk to me about the Elder of Feeling. Where are you at with that? Have you tried that yet?
Not yet. I'm working up to it. It's making me a little nervous.
Talk to me about it. Tell me. This is the perfect time to ask these questions.
I just, how do I phrase this? I want to get into shadow work and things like that, but I'm just kind of like, I'm a really big repressor.
Okay.
So I'm worried about like opening up boxes that, I'm not sure I'm ready to deal with, but I know that's the whole purpose of this. So, not feeling good was the perfect excuse, but now that I'm feeling a little bit better, it's like, okay, I don't really have an excuse anymore. I need to.
Gotcha. Totally.
I need to like deal.
Okay.
So I have
So
just
go ahead.
tip of the iceberg. I have like father issues,
Uh-huh.
and those came rearing to an ugly head this year. Both my parents caught COVID at the same time back in October, and my dad got really sick, like he was in the hospital for a week.
Uh-huh.
And that just brought up things.
Yeah.
So I know I need to work on that. I've been scared, honestly. Just 100% transparency. I've been scared.
Totally. Okay,
So
great. This is awesome. I'm glad we're talking about this. So, first off, yes, I hear you. Your feelings are completely valid and understood and felt. Like, I totally get it. Shadow work, when you're first starting the descent, it totally is scary. Nothing about it's comfortable. Like, absolutely. So you're completely yes and yes. I totally understand and can relate. Um, I would say that if here is your hesitancy where you currently are at with the idea and concept of shadow work. And I love that you're opening yourself up to, like, no, you need to try. You just need to at least try. That's wonderful. But you can also give yourself permission to start with something smaller that's not such a huge trigger for you or something that's really heavily weighted. You can do something that's a little, like, not so rough. Examples of things are like things that I would invite you to bring to. Are you able to come to the karma cleansing this Saturday? The Austera. Okay. So, like the karma cleansing that we're doing, I'm going to ask you to pick one limiting belief or repetitive pattern that you have about yourself that keeps kind of bubbling up for you, that's not serving you. It sucks, you hate it, you wish it wasn't a part of your life, or I wish this wasn't true about myself, or whatever. I'll ask you to pick one of those, and we're going to workshop it through the class. And you can keep it private, or you can share what your experience is on the call or not. It's totally up to you. But that's an exercise similar to the elder feeling, where what you want to bring to the table is not your deepest, darkest, heaviest trigger and trauma. Neither of those places are the place for those exercises. This is a place to start exercising that grief tending muscle to get you practicing the relief that comes from allowing yourself to feel. Allowing yourself to feel as you feel when you feel it, and to discover that when you allow yourself the opportunity to feel, number one, it actually feels good. If I don't know if you've ever had a cry where when you're done, you're like, God, that actually felt really good to do that. Have you ever experienced that before?
I don't. Honestly, I don't think so. I don't like to cry. So when I cry, it's usually because something's really wrong.
Yeah. So one of the beautiful things about learning how to tend to one's grief properly is we get to a place where grief tending feels really good. And it becomes a very nourishing thing for the soul. A lot of indigenous cultures, and if I've said this before, just stop me and be like, we've already talked about this name. But a lot of indigenous cultures, they really get it. They really understand this concept of grief tending. And even in cultures that totally exist right now, today, they have these beautiful processes in place. They consider grief tending to be a community and an individual obligation. It's something you are obligated to tend to your grief, because grief that goes untended ends up becoming a sickness. Not just a sickness within our bodies that lingers within our tissues and affects our own health and well-being, but it starts to seep out and affect and become toxic to others as well. Kind of like you can equate it to alcoholics. that they end up kind of leaving this wake of destruction to all the people in their lives, even though those people aren't drinking. It's similar. Like grief can spread in that way as well. And it has to do with what ends up becoming our inability to deal with circumstances when we're interacting with others, because we have all these layers of weight and limitation that we're carrying with us all the time. So when we get into a healthy space of grief, it ends up becoming this natural flow. A misconception about grief tending is that I tended to the grief, it's done. I did my work, it's all done, I'm healed. Like, grief doesn't work like that. Grief is cyclical. So even when you've had healing, the grief around that particular thing or around your father, it might resurface again later down the road after you've had all this profound healing. But when it does resurface, it's never going to resurface in the same way ever again. Whereas before, and it will offer new healing when it arrives in its new way, versus someone who's never grief tended. People who don't grief tend, the stories that they carry about their traumas and their triggers are the same. Those stories have not changed. They haven't evolved. They're the exact same story as when that first trauma and trigger was created. It's told from the same perspective of when that wound first was developed, except the human is not that same person anymore. There's a huge span of years, sometimes 20 some years, between the event and where they are today. But the story has remained unchanged. And that's where grief tending work comes in, is it gives you the opportunity to evaluate who really is the narrator of that journey. Sometimes it's a younger version of yourself. Sometimes the story is told from the perspective of your actual wound. Like there's lots of different narrators. So it's about identifying your narrator. It's about learning all the different ways that you're able to see and offer compassion for those who participated in the event, as well as compassion for yourself. We had diminished capacities at the time of the event. We had limited knowledge at the time of the event, and so did the other people in the story, where they were, how were they raised, what aspects of love were they not shown that affected their ability to arrive and show up in situations, and on and on and on and on. Like there's so much work and layers to do around it. So the Elder of Feeling, and where are you with module 3? Did you get to look at any of it yet?
Yeah, I've looked through it.
Okay.
I know you mentioned another shadow work coming in with that module.
Yeah, so the Life Stone.
Yes.
Yep. So the Life Stone is actually much more of a feel-good one. It's more of a feel-good one. The Elder of Feeling is a little more like we're really doing this. But yeah, so both of those are just to help you exercise and get your whistle wet for practicing allowing yourself to feel. I think I was going to hold off on it, but I think now that I know kind of your perspective on grief, I think I will share these videos. They're actually just audio on YouTube. There's no visual, just audio, but there is some grief tending that I want you to listen to, and it's by this Mayan shaman. His name is Martin Prechtel, and he's written several books, so I haven't had the pleasure of reading him yet, but he is the most beautiful human ever, and he lives in a culture where they have that indigenous village mindset where grieving is an obligation. So I will have you listen to those just to hear his perspective on grief and what it can really offer a person. It's so beautiful, and it's so not how Americans think about grief. It's great. So yeah, so I did want to say those things. And then also grieving, from my perspective, it's meant to be a shared experience. Martine Frechtel describes Americans as we're such individualists that we're terrified to grieve because we're afraid there's no one there to pull us out of the water. You know, which is so fucking true, right?
Yeah.
With how we feel with grief. That's so true. I found it
Yeah.
was brilliant that he worded it that way. I was like, yes, like that's exactly what we're like. So
Yeah.
his whole belief and perspective and the way he actually gets to live his life is that he lives in the cultures that grieving is a community affair. There's beautiful villages in Africa where every day at the same time of day, this whole village, the work day for everyone in the village ends at like the same time of day. And at this one time in the evening, the whole village, including all the little children, they all gather at the local tavern or pub or whatever, and they share about their day, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They release, they let go, they allow themselves to be seen, they allow themselves to be heard by everyone, and everyone in the village just takes care of each other. The littlest kids can be nursed by any woman there that has milk. Like everyone takes care of each other. It's just a very, I don't know. For me, I'm moved entirely by that concept of people being of service to one another and being present with everyone. I think it's such a beautiful way to live, and I am disappointed that I don't live in a culture like that.
Yeah.
That experiences and offers that. It's just like, what is wrong with us? Oh, God, our culture sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
We have so much privilege, and I'm grateful for so many things. But there's some things where I'm like, the human part of us is like really compromised. So just know, I want you to know where I stand in grief tending. I believe it's meant to be shared. I do not believe that you are meant to go through your grief alone. I believe I'm inviting you to start working on your grief tending so that I can be here for you, so that you don't have to be in it alone. There's free mentoring that comes with this program. So when you are grieving, you can schedule a session with me to say, like, I have so much going on, I have so many feels or whatever. Like, that's part of what my role is for you. So you can schedule time with me where I'm here to be that shoulder. I'm here to listen. I'm here to offer anything I can to help you work through something. And also, I will say that the people that I invite to this program, to Wake the Witch Within, hold a very special place in my heart. That my other program, I don't know if you've seen it on my website, but I do a 6-month shadow training program, and it's to do the deep descent, the deep work. So it's 6 months. We meet every other week because everything I give you to do, you need time to process it, to work with it. Grieving cannot be, that type of grieving, the deep descent work, that can't be rushed. So it's 6 months, and that program, if it resonated for you, like if you read about it and the work really resonated for you, don't feel held back on a financial front. If that's a barrier for you, just talk to me about it. Like, yeah, I wouldn't worry if that was a thing. So, yeah, I just want you to know that if that's the type, if you feel ready to start chewing off, like working on that, then that would be the program to do that work in. If you want to really focus on the father stuff, that's the program for it, not this one. We can start working on other things about limiting beliefs of like, I wish I ate better, or I wish I didn't feel like I have to do everything myself, or, those types of things that won't like totally dismantle you. Those are the types of things to work with the elder of feeling with, to take to the elder of feeling, if that clarifies something.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, just let me know, and I'm here for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. What else? I think so. Yep. Yep. So yeah, so for this week, you'll be working on trying to beef up your spells. If you've already been writing spells, just try to bring some more intentionality into them. Mix your mediums, give them a little more depth. Try something you haven't tried before. Is a good idea. And consider making a spell bottle. Have you ever made one before?
No.
Yeah, so this would be a great time to the store Home Goods. They sell a lot of really cool bottles that you can get as a single, and they're really inexpensive.
Okay.
So that's a good store. And all of these ones that have the metal caps on them, I got like a 12 pack of these at Michael's for like $10.
Okay.
Yeah, and I use these for a lot of things. I keep a lot of my witch supplies that I use for spell bottles in these bottles. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then like these little dudes, I got on Amazon. They're super cheap. Same with the goddess charms. I got those on Amazon. They're really inexpensive to get like a bag of 30 of them or whatever. They're really, really affordable. But yeah, you can start with just a single bottle. Just go to Home Goods and grab like one. They got some really neat bottles there. Yep. And then the Lifestone meditation would be the next thing I would like you to focus on. Yeah, I'd like to hear about that. The Lifestone's a really fun thing. You do want, it does require that you go outside and in nature. So make sure, I understand that if it'll be a minute before you feel well enough to go venturing out into the woods or whatever, wherever you are, to go get your Lifestone. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're working on. Next week, I'm going to teach you how to cast spells from your fingers. So I'm going to be teaching you a Japanese mudra practice called Kuji. And what's exciting about it is that you're not going to be able to learn it anywhere else. You can Google it and you're not going to find anything about it. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those lost esoteric arts that I was fortunate enough to be passed on to me. So it's one of the funner things that I get to share with people because I know it's a very rare thing. So that's what we're going to focus on next week is that, and we'll talk a bit about sigils as well next week. Yeah. So anyway, any questions for me about anything? Even it doesn't have to be related to today's lesson. In general.
The witch's ladder is something that I've always wanted to try, but it has always been like I don't even know where to begin. So I really liked that. Do you feel like that's something that you can, like, if you start like a small witch's ladder, do you feel like that's something that you can build onto to make it like bigger? Like the ladder itself, the ribbon itself?
Like if you built a tiny witch's ladder, could you just expand on it later to make it bigger?
Yeah, like throughout, a span of time, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, slowly work on building up that spell for the witch's ladder.
I think that's a really cool idea.
Okay.
I hadn't thought about it, but I like the idea of taking something old and continuing to make it new and newer and newer each time and building upon it. It's a way of honoring the steps that have come before, holding reverence for the versions of yourself that were creating as they could with what they had at that time. I think that's really beautiful. I like that idea. If I'm understanding you correctly, I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had this placeholder on my website forever about a witch's ladder class that I have this placeholder that's like video coming soon. And it's been on my website ever since I launched my website. I haven't got around to doing it because the witch's ladder I'm creating for that video that I currently happen to have supplies with is huge. It's like this huge project that it's just so daunting to me that I haven't committed to doing it. So I keep meaning to do that. I do, and also I did create these. I created a traveling witch's ladder as an item to sell in my shop, and they're little. I'll show you what. I'll go grab it. I'll show you what it looks like. But I never uploaded it to my website because I almost broke my sewing machine trying to make it because the ribbon was so fat that I have to find a better way to seal them before I offer it to people. So I actually only have 2 to give, like, or for people to get. But
Yeah.
let me show you what it looks like. So this is something like, did you read the All Souls trilogy?
I have seen the show and I'm like halfway through the first book.
Nice. So that book, that book series, I have found that a lot of the approach and practices that they use in that show and movie are very accurate to a lot of realistic things of lineages and practices that totally exist today. So I really like that about that show. But I guess, so you've seen the second season then, yes?
Yeah.
So this idea of the ribbons and the knot magic that she's doing, that's totally applicable and that's very relevant. So that's kind of what gave me this idea, is that I created these little traveling witches ladders, and it's basically every color ribbon on a little carabiner, so you can fasten it to your purse or to a bag, but it's a way of doing knot magic on the go. And it gives you practice, and then it comes with this little book that teaches you like what each of the colors of the ribbons mean, and then like it talks you through like by knot of 1 the spell's begun, by knot of 2 the spell through, like all of that. So it's just a little, baby witch's ladder on the go. But yeah, to sew this, to feed this through my sewing machine thought it was gonna die. It was like, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna break my machine. Oh no, my needle's gonna like skewer me in the face. Yeah, so I made 2 and I just was white knuckling the whole process, and I'm like, I gotta find a better way. This is so stressful. So
yeah,
I have all this ribbon to sell these and give people some practice on how to continue to exercise that juicy muscle of making shit happen in their lives. But yeah, I gotta find a better way to stitch these. It's like I need a handheld industrial strength, like sewing thing, because it would take 2 seconds to do. The distance is super short, but it's so quick. So I had to figure something out. If you get any ideas, let me know. But yeah, so the witch's ladder video for me, like that, it's coming. The ribbons that I currently have for the witch's ladder, I'm going to try to build that I will use as the example in the video. I'm actually building a witch's ladder that is to replace a salt circle. So wow. I'm going to construct a huge white braided circle with white and silver and protective gems and stones, something that's like 18 feet length.
Yeah. Wow.
To sit inside of when I cast. And that works really well, provided that you can rub out the protective barrier. So like I have a cleansing tonic that I can spray on the gems and kind of rub them out, and I can hang the full circle in my window overnight to let the moon cleanse it each night that I use it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's just kind of this interesting idea because I don't like the idea of casting with salt. Like the salt circle, it gets everywhere. Like it's not great for the ground. Like shit can't grow under it, that kind of thing. Like I don't like the idea of casting with salt. That's why I use the protection and clearing spell that I do, and I just that's all I use. So I like this idea of crafting a physical protective circle that I can just like cleanse it in the window, roll it up, put it in a box,
Yeah.
pull it out. So it's big. Like if this guy took me 6 hours and it was originally supposed to be 9 feet, but I stopped, and this one's gonna be like 18. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna take me so long. So my enthusiasm has not totally prevailed this endeavor. I have all the supplies, but it has not quite come through. But yeah, if you want to, yeah, honestly, like I feel like in the description, witch ladders are they're not super complicated. Anything that you can tie or braid, it doesn't matter what it's made from, yarn, string, whatever, it works. Scarves, like you can use anything that you can twist and braid together. Even strands of stones and gems, like it works. And you can use braiding, or you can use knotting, or you can use both. Mixed in with everything you learned tonight about spell casting and spell weaving, and that's all you need for a witch's ladder. That's it.
Cool.
Those are the only tools you need. So yeah, they can be any length. They can be. I will tell you right now that this is about as short as it can possibly get with a material that's this thick. Like even these little thinner ribbons, it is really hard to get 9 knots with this length of material. You need more. If you're going to use knotting magic, you actually need more room than this. So for this, using that concept of numerology, you can, for these, for myself, I narrow it down to 3 knots with braids mixed in, and intentionally acknowledge that every knot represents 3 knots. And I say the spell of each of the 3 when I knot the 1. And, you know, and then I do like 4 through 6 when I knot the second one, that kind of thing. So again, there's a workaround to however you do it. But yeah, knotting magic takes a little bit more room depending on the material you're using. But yeah, witches ladders are awesome. I love them, especially for people who are really tactile. It's a great way to work with spells.
Okay, so for this week, you said spell jar and life stone.
Yep.
To make sure.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Spell jar, life stone. I'll release the module tomorrow. That'll be available to you, and it's a great idea to work with the Elder of Healing when you have your life stone available to you. Because if any deep work ends up bubbling up to the surface through working with the Elder of Healing, the life stone is a great reprieve from any of that deep work. The life stone is a practice that was transmitted to my teacher by Source for him to share with others. And it's this idea of going out into nature and finding a stone that is agreeing to represent your whole life. It's agreeing to be the keeper of all of your memories, all the life you've ever lived, and it also holds the knowledge of all the life you will ever live in the future as well. So it's a means of using this stone as a teacher. So you meditate with it, you ask it questions, you give it offerings, you give it nourishment as a way of giving your own life nourishment and feeding your own soul. So it's creating this beautiful dynamic and relationship. And how people work with their life stone is you literally, I mean this literally, you talk to it. You talk to your rock. you tell this stone about your day. You just spill your guts out to the rock, and you can ask your life stone questions, and it knows everything there is to know about you. So it has all the answers already. You just have to ask, and then step back and be patient and listen. But you meditate with it, and it provides a lot of great insights to your life. So what you'll see about the life stone meditation, it guides you through how to find a life stone, what to look for in picking one, like all that kinds of things. But the life stone basically picks you. You're really called to it. So it talks about all of that, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
So
would you say that process of finding a life stone is super important, like being out on a walk in nature and kind of happening across one? Is that like, how am I trying to say this?
Is that how it's done?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how you describe it. But is that like the only way to do it, I guess? Or like, are there other paths to finding your life stone?
I would say there's always a possibility of doing something in a different way. Absolutely. The bare bones of it is that also your life stone might not be a stone. It might be a branch or a feather or something that you find. But basically is you're looking for a natural component, something natural to nature, that you have to ask, like, would you be willing to come home with me and become a part of my daily practice and be the keeper of all that is about me, all of my memories and all that I will ever do and become? Like, are you willing to work with me in that way? And whatever the object is, it'll tell you yes or no. Like, no, fuck no. Like, I don't want to do that. You're like, oh, sorry. Like, my bad. Like, carry on. Like, bye. Yeah, it'll tell you whether or not it's willing to work with you. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a stone. I've known people who have found other things. Also, you'll go through phases in your life where your relationship to your life stone might change, and it might be time to get a different stone. But it does walk you through the process of, you want to give an offering to replace whatever it is you take out of nature. Yeah, so whatever you take, you want to leave something in its place. But the fact that it's in the natural world and of the natural world versus something that's man-made is important. I'd say that part is relevant. But other than that, like,
yeah. So I say this specifically, I'll just tell you the whole truth. I'm beating around the bush. For the past 2-3 years, I've been a part of this witch pen pal group all over the world. Actually, we have people. I sent a letter about a year ago to a woman in Romania. Like, it's every month we exchange letters with witches all over the world. And I just happened to, I had already read the thing about the life stone, and I got my latest package or letter from a fellow witch, and she included a stone in it. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. Like, I just read this thing about the life stone. She sent a stone to me. I'm just wondering, like, if it's important that I find it on my own, or like, is it something that could be given to me?
Got it. Got it. Beautiful question. Ask the stone that you got.
Okay.
Yeah. Read the full thing about giving the stone offerings and whatever. Ask that stone that you got as a gift if it'll agree to be your stone. If it says yes, then there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Again, it's the whatever is agreeing to be your life stone, it's choosing you. Like, you're only asking it when you feel that, ooh, are you for me? Like, are you my life stone? Because we get that feeling about anything that resonates with us. We're wondering, is that it? Is that my life stone? But it takes two, okay? Because
Right.
it becomes a relationship. So you have to ask that stone, like, are you? Are you my life stone? So see what you get. And if it's a yes, that's great.
Okay.
What a beautiful gift. What
Yeah.
a serendipitous gift.
Yeah.
If that is in fact your life stone, how magical that it was sent to you, and also by a fellow witch. That's beautiful. Yeah. So that can totally be a thing. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. See what the stone has to say, but otherwise, totally. That's fine.
Okay.
Yep. There's magic everywhere. And magic doesn't always come in the form that we expect it. So it's all good. It's all good. Golly, you're into some fun things. I want to hear more about this group. And your druid group, I want to hear lots about that. Like, goodness.
That would be fun conversations to have.
Yeah. How far, where are you again? What town are you? What is it called?
I'm in San Marcos.
Or what is that, an hour and a half?
From Austin?
Yeah.
It's like 30, 40 minutes.
From downtown Austin, right?
Yeah, from downtown Austin.
Okay, I'm like way north. Yeah. We should do coffee.
Yeah, that would be cool.
We should get together. I don't mind coming down. I don't mind making a drive or meeting in the middle or wherever.
Yeah.
Actually, meeting in downtown Austin or South Austin would be meeting in the middle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're that far north.
Actually, I know of some really great coffee shops that are in South Austin. Really good coffee. Or tea, whatever, breakfast, blah blah. But yeah, we should absolutely. I would love to meet in person and just you know get to know about you and your life. I'd love it. I would love it.
Yeah, as soon as I test negative, we'll have to set something up.
Yeah, that's a good plan. All right, hon. Well, you take care of yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here. I'm available. And also know that the Elder of Healing is there to shed newness and to shed light and to shed gifts and healing and medicine on anything that you bring into her. So, yeah, she's there to show you something that you're missing, that makes the pain of the situation easier to swallow. So, yeah, I get the fear component, absolutely. Don't let it stop you, and know that you've got me and you've got Amanda, and eventually there will also be more of us. And it also sounds like you're building a beautiful community of witches also. So, yeah. Yep. We're
Thank
here for
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's that kitty cat?
This is Lucy.
Oh,
Lucy Goosey. She's my fluffy butt. I adopted her in September, not long after I had moved here.
Oh.
She is the first ever long-haired female orange cat I've ever seen. Like, most orange cats are male. That's a weird statistic, but it's true. But she is long hair and female and orange. So she's like a triple weirdo.
I love it.
So she fits right in.
I love how you describe her that way. So great. We love weirdos. What a awesome. I'm so happy that you're well enough to come tonight. It's great to see your face.
Yeah, it was great to talk to somebody.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling for you. Like, living alone is not a big thing, you know, but when you're sick, it makes being alone just awful. You just kind of long for somebody to be like, I wish someone was feeding me soup and taking care of me. Like, ooh, I don't like that.
Or just witness how pathetic I am. Just,
sure, you know. Yeah, totally. Do you happen to, is this true for you? Wait a minute, how old are you? Are we the similar age?
I'm 33.
Okay, you're a lot younger than me. Do you ever feel like watching the movies that you loved when you were a little kid when you're sick? Does that happen to you?
Yeah, mine is more like, I'm more of a like a TV person. So like I like to watch the TV shows that I used to watch as a kid, or
there you go,
or this nostalgia.
Yeah.
Shows.
I was just thinking yesterday about my movie that I feel I want to watch when I'm sick, and wondering like, what are other people's go-to sick movies, and is it from your childhood? I bet it is, like, kind of a thing. Mine is the Chipmunks Great Adventure. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but I find it's aged very well and it's adorable.
Yeah.
I'll be 40 this year, and I'm like, yep, I watched the Chipmunks Adventure to this day when I don't feel good. Like that and Goonies and Adventures in Babysitting, like those are my my comfort when I'm ill. Oh, so funny.
Yeah.
All right, babe. Well, feel better, rest up, take care of you, let your animals love on you. And I'm sure you probably got a lot of overwhelm with Module 3 and Module 4 coming up or whatever, but just know that once the program's over, you have all the time in the world to keep feeding yourself the stuff. And also, you are welcome to stay a part of the Wake the Witch Within program as long as you want. So when it ends, if you ever want a refresher, you can always jump in on a nightly call that we're studying something if you want to study it with others for future cycles. Like I've invited Amanda into this, that I'm like, if you want to continue, because I end up sharing different things every time, like something else comes up and I'm like, so yeah, you're always welcome. So don't feel rushed or pressured.
Okay.
All right, and have a wonderful night. Good to see you.
You too.
All right, bye.